Hey there, so I'm back. I hope you're having a really good week. Wanted to say hello and share with you what I think is a really helpful but also fun exercise related to our communication skills. And this is going to throw you back a few years, well, in some cases, maybe more than a few years, to your childhood. By the way, for me, it's also more than a few years. We're going to go back to when we were young, thinking about something. And you might hear this little noise in the background. I'll kill it in a second. But before I do, you take a look at that. You hear a little bit, but also see a little Kiss Alive too. Some of you may have been Kiss fans when you were young. I was a big Kiss fan, I would say, from about 8, 9 years old till 12, 13. And then I started to morph into other hair bands of the 80s. But yeah, I was a big Kiss fan. And I'm going to share something with you, a story about what I was doing when I was young that has helped me as an adult with my communication. And I can almost guarantee you were doing something very similar. So, what am I talking about? Well, I'm going to give you a couple examples, but the first one ties into our friends here at KISS. So when I was about 10, 11, 12 years old, first of all, I was a drummer. I never got very good, but I took drum lessons, had drum set in my basement, drove my brothers and my parents a little crazy with that. But I used to sit in my bedroom and play Kiss Alive 2, this album. And I know some of you know these songs really well, right? And I would go through the whole album pretending I was playing the concert, pretending I was Peter Criss. Now, my drum set was in the basement, but I would take a pillow and my drumsticks, and I would play the drums on the pillows while listening to Kiss Alive 2. I loved it. I did that all the time. I must have done that 50 times over the course of a couple of years, again, around 10, 11, or 12 years old. And I share that for a couple of reasons, but the biggest is when we're that age, when we're in those still developing informative years, we're picking up on a lot of cues from things that we watch and listen to. I mean, it's such a great time in our life. We're sponges, right? You know this. We're sponges at that age. So we're taking in cues, behavior, what other people are doing, the adults, our parents, the people around us, but also in mediums like, there was plenty of TV back then, not a lot, but there was still plenty of TV and a lot of record albums, right? So we were listening to music. And even something like Kiss or just music in general, we're picking up a lot of cues. And here's what I learned about what I was doing in those days where I would play the drums to the Kiss Alive 2 concert in my bedroom as a 10, 11-year-old, is it gave me a better sense of feeling some external activities, noise, music, behaviors, whatever. I would feel like for some songs, I was just playing Detroit Rock City here, which opens the concert. I love that song. I love that song, and it gets me really fired up, and it gives me like a lot of dopamine and a really good feeling. I enjoy it. I feel on top of the world. So I want you to think back to when you were a child or young, around that age, or younger, a little older, whatever. What was it that you listened to or watched? And I'm going to give you a couple other examples from my life that you can probably relate to or use to think about your examples. What was it that you watched and listened to as a youngster that stirred up emotions in you? And you can think about it today and remember the feelings and even thoughts that it gave you. Again, one of mine was listening to Kiss Alive 2 and just really being into that music, that concert. And I would, you know, manifest that by pretending I was playing the drums. And I just loved that I could connect emotionally with music, and it gave me certain feelings. And remember now as adults in our day-to-day life in our world, there are things that we watch and see. There are people that we watch, be it online or in person, not as much in person these days, I know, kind of a bummer, but that gives us emotional feeling and connection. Let me give you another example. So another thing I did regularly, and I'm comfortable admitting this, is my grandparents babysat. My mom's parents lived right around the corner, so they babysat me and my brothers a lot when we would get out of school back in the early days, and so that meant I was watching a lot of soap operas. My grandmother loved the late 70s, early 80s when I was really little, loved soap operas, so I would sit and watch them with her. Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, Another World, and what did I learn from that? And I didn't really know it at the time, but I'm going to tell you what I learned from watching those soap operas, right? Well, if you remember those shows, very dramatic, very, let's just say, overacted dramatic. And it was really good as an adult. And I didn't just come up with this recently. I've thought about this many times over the years. I learned a lot by watching those soap operas about people's facial expressions and body language. right? So the music gave me a lot about feeling, emotional feeling within myself, getting excited over a certain song. Watching soap operas like I did a lot as a kid, it helped me connect to, oh, so when somebody's giving bad news to somebody, these are the kind of expressions they make. This is the tone of their voice. This is the pitch they make. Now, we know they're actors, and that's kind of the beauty of it with the soap operas, right? Because they tended to go very dramatic, a little overboard at times. And they did it very well because they're trained actors, but it helped us pick up on cues. I mean, I've heard, to give you kind of an equivalent, a little bit more modern day, not quite, but a little bit more. They've always talked about, if you watch the show Friends, which was a big hit show for like 10 years, that they did a really good job. Those 6 actors did a great job of their emotional expressions on their faces when crazy, weird things would happen. Happy things, sad things, everything in between, drama things. You can really read what they were feeling by looking at their facial expressions. And I feel the same way when I think back to watching soap operas as a kid. And it's really interesting. So I think about that in today's world. I formed a lot of my feeling, thought, understanding of body language and expression by watching soap operas. So another question to you. I already gave the example of the music. What was something you watched as a kid that you picked up on language, communication, expression, emotional expression, body language, right? And think about those things, all right? Think about what it is that you watched and what did you learn from them and how do they tie into how you communicate today? And the communication being two-way. Not only how you communicate with others, but how you pick up and observe what others are doing. I was going to share a third one. I'll make this real quick. I also loved to watch news when I was young, believe it or not. Walter Cronkite when I was really little, but then Dan Rather, Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw. And I learned from them about delivering news and information kind of stoically, semi to very unemotionally. Another great thing to pick up. So I've thought about this many times over the years. Newscasters taught me how to deliver information and news in kind of an unemotional, detached, stoic way. Soap operas taught me about body language and emotion and emotional expression. And Kiss Alive 2 and the guys on Kiss taught me about feeling very connected on an emotional level to something that was really good and uplifting and get me all jazzed up, no pun intended, and excited. Right? So spend just a couple minutes, journal, write it down. Like, what were things that you watched as a child? Sorry, my arm's shaking a little bit, so the video is a little shaky, but what can you do? Think about things that you watched as a child that you learned from that still impact you today as a communicator. And it's great to refortify these lessons and take them forward. I'd love to share. I'd love to do an exercise one day with y'all where you share with me what were your examples, all right? And I'm going to follow up with some of you on this. What were the examples that you watched, listened to, and learned from as a child that helped with your communication skills today, all right? Enjoy, dive into this one, and I'll see y'all soon. Thanks, bye.